The neighborhood HOA president's smug grin quickly faded as Jenna unrolled her protest banner, rallying a crowd of fired-up neighbors. "You banned my BBQ grill? Then I'll throw the biggest block party this town has ever seen, with the mayor as my guest of honor." The roar of the crowd drowned out the president's stammered objections. Jenna's defiant challenge had set off a chain reaction that would shake the very foundation of their carefully manicured community. Jenna stared in disbelief at the terse HOA letter. "Banned from using a BBQ grill on my own property. This has to be a joke." She crumpled the paper in her hand, her pulse quickening with rage. For years, she and her husband, Mike, had hosted the annual neighborhood barbecue, a beloved tradition that brought everyone together. But the new HOA president, the overbearing and power-hungry Mrs. Wilkins, had deemed grills an unacceptable fire hazard. "This is an outrage. I'm not letting that shrew ruin our barbecue." Jenna marched over to Mike, who was tending to his prized grill. "You won't believe what the HOA just pulled." Mike's face fell as Jenna relayed the news. "No way. They can't do that. This BBQ is the highlight of the summer for everyone." He shook his head in disbelief. "We have to fight this." "That's exactly what I plan to do." Jenna's eyes gleamed with determination. "I'm going to organize the biggest, most epic neighborhood block party this community has ever seen. And I'm going to invite the mayor himself to attend." Mike's brow furrowed. "The mayor? Jenna, are you sure that's a good idea? Mrs. Wilkins and the rest of the HOA board aren't going to be happy about this." "Exactly." Jenna grinned. "I want them to be furious. This is war, Mike, and I'm going to win." The next day, Jenna began rallying the neighbors, going door to door and spreading the word. At first, many were hesitant, worried about angering the HOA. But Jenna's passionate pleas and promises of an unforgettable celebration eventually won them over. "This is our chance to show Mrs. Wilkins that we won't be bullied," Jenna declared. "Who's with me?" The crowd erupted in cheers, and Jenna knew she had them on her side. She quickly got to work, organizing the event details and reaching out to the mayor's office. Meanwhile, Mrs. Wilkins was growing increasingly agitated as rumors of Jenna's block party plans circulated. "This is unacceptable," she fumed to the HOA board. "We cannot allow this kind of defiance. We have rules in place for a reason." One of the board members, a meek retiree named Mrs. Livingston, timidly raised her hand. "But Mrs. Wilkins, the residents seem quite excited about this party. Perhaps we cooled." "Absolutely not." Mrs. Wilkins snapped. "I will not have our carefully cultivated community torn apart by such nonsense. We must put a stop to this immediately." As the meeting adjourned, Mrs. Wilkins marched over to Jenna's house, determined to nip this rebellion in the bud. But when she arrived, she was greeted by a sight that made her blood boil. A massive banner unfurled across Jenna's lawn, proudly announcing the upcoming neighborhood block party, featuring special guest, the mayor. Jenna watched from her window, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. The battle lines had been drawn, and the clash between her and the HOA president was about to begin. Mrs. Wilkins stormed up Jenna's driveway, her face flushed with outrage. She pounded on the door, her knuckles white with fury. Jenna opened the door, an innocent smile plastered on her face. "Why, Mrs. Wilkins, what a pleasant surprise. How can I help you today?" "You know exactly why I'm here, Jenna," the HOA president spat. "This block party nonsense has to stop. It's a direct violation of our community guidelines." Jenna feigned surprise. "Guidelines? But I thought the HOA had banned all BBQ grills. Doesn't that mean we can't have our annual neighborhood barbecue?" She shrugged dramatically. "So I decided to host a different kind of community event instead." Mrs. Wilkins' eyes narrowed. "Don't play dumb with me. You're purposefully trying to undermine our authority." "Authority?" Jenna scoffed. "The HOA is supposed to serve the residents not dictate our every move. This party is for the good of the whole community. The good of the community? Mrs. Wilkins sputtered. This is nothing more than an act of defiance. I won't allow it. Jenna's expression hardened. I'm afraid you don't have a choice. The party is happening, whether you like it or not. In fact, the mayor has already confirmed his attendance. Mrs. Wilkins' eyes widened in shock. The mayor? You can't be serious. Oh, but I am. Jenna's lips curled into a triumphant smile. He's just as outraged by your heavy-handed tactics as the rest of us. So unless you want to explain to him why you're trying to shut down a beloved community event, I suggest you back off. The HOA president opened and closed her mouth, struggling to find the words. Finally, she let out an exasperated huff. This isn't over, Jenna. Mark my words, I will not let you get away with this. We'll see about that, Jenna replied coolly. She watched as Mrs. Wilkins stormed back to her car, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. As soon as the HOA president was out of sight, Jenna closed the door and let out a deep breath. She knew this was only the beginning of a long and bitter battle, but she was determined to win. Over the next few days, the buzz around the block party grew. Neighbors eagerly pitched in, volunteering to bring food, set up tents, and organize games and activities. Jenna's phone was constantly ringing with excited calls, each one fueling her determination. Meanwhile, Mrs. Wilkins was in a frenzy, convening emergency HOA meetings and searching for any loophole she could use to shut down the event. But try as she might, she couldn't find a valid legal reason to do so. The night of the party arrived, and the streets were alive with the sound of laughter and music. Jenna stood at the entrance, greeting the guests with a wide smile. As the mayor's car pulled up, she felt a thrill of triumph. This was her moment of victory. She had stood up to the HOA's tyranny, and the community had rallied behind her. Now, with the mayor's support, she was ready to show Mrs. Wilkins that the residents would not be silenced. The block party was in full swing, and Jenna couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Her determination had paid off, and she was finally getting the justice she deserved. But as the night wore on, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. Mrs. Wilkins was not the kind of person to back down easily, and Jenna knew that the war for the future of their community was far from over. As the music blared and the laughter of the crowd filled the air, Jenna couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The block party she had organized was a roaring success, and the mayor's presence only added to the festive atmosphere. Mrs. Wilkins, however, was seething with rage as she watched the revelry unfold from her living room window. Her carefully manicured community was being overrun by what she considered to be nothing more than uncouth rabble. This is an outrage, she fumed, pacing back and forth. Jenna has no right to defy the HOA's authority like this. I have to put a stop to this before it gets out of hand. The HOA president quickly gathered the rest of the board members and called an emergency meeting. As they sat around a large oak table, their faces etched with concern, Mrs. Wilkins laid out her plan. We need to take drastic action, she declared, her eyes narrowing. This block party is a direct challenge to our power, and we can't let Jenna get away with it. One of the board members, a timid retiree named Mrs. Livingston, timidly raised her hand. But Mrs. Wilkins, the residents seem to be having a wonderful time. Perhaps we cooled. Absolutely not, the HOA president snapped. We cannot let this sort of behavior be rewarded. If we don't put our foot down now, it will only embolden the others to defy us further. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, but no one dared to argue with Mrs. Wilkins. Her iron grip on the community was well known, and they all knew better than to cross her. So what's the plan? Asked Mr. Hawkins, the HOA's treasurer. Mrs. Wilkins leaned forward, a sly grin spreading across her face. We're going to hit Jenna where it hurts the most. Her precious block party. The next day, as the festivities were in full swing, A commotion erupted at the entrance to the party. Jenna rushed over to find a group of uniformed officers, led by a stern-faced Mrs. Wilkins. "What's going on here?" Jenna demanded, her heart pounding. "I'm afraid I have no choice but to shut down this event," Mrs. Wilkins declared, her voice dripping with triumph. "You see, I've discovered that you failed to obtain the proper permits for this gathering. That makes it an illegal gathering, and the police have no choice but to disperse the crowd." Jenna's eyes widened in disbelief. "That's impossible. I followed all the necessary protocols." "Well, it seems you made a mistake somewhere along the way," Mrs. Wilkins replied smoothly. "And as the HOA president, it's my duty to enforce the rules, no matter how unpleasant it may be." The crowd around them erupted in angry shouts, but the officers began herding them away, their faces impassive. Jenna turned to the mayor, who had been standing nearby, watching the scene unfold with a frown. "You can't let her do this," she pleaded. "The people deserve to have their party." The mayor sighed, shaking his head. "I'm afraid my hands are tied, Jenna. If the HOA has followed the proper procedures, then I can't intervene. It's out of my hands." Jenna felt her heart sink as she watched the party she had worked so hard to organize being dismantled before her eyes. Mrs. Wilkins stood by, a smug expression on her face, clearly relishing her victory. As the last of the guests reluctantly filed out, Jenna turned to her nemesis, her eyes blazing with fury. "This isn't over, Mrs. Wilkins. I'm not going to let you win." The HOA president simply smiled, undaunted by Jenna's defiant words. "We'll see about that, my dear. We'll see about that." Jenna knew that the battle lines had been drawn, and the war for the future of their community was far from over. She was determined to find a way to outmaneuver Mrs. Wilkins and reclaim the power that rightfully belonged to the residents. This was only the beginning, and she was more than ready to fight. Jenna paced back and forth in her living room, her mind racing. The sudden and unexpected shutdown of the block party had left her feeling defeated, but she refused to give up. "There has to be a way to fight this," she muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration. Mike, her husband, watched her with a concerned expression. "Jenna, I know you're upset, but going head-to-head with the HOA isn't going to be easy. Mrs. Wilkins has the law on her side, and she's not afraid to use it." Jenna whirled around to face him, her eyes blazing with determination. "I don't care, Mike. This isn't just about a stupid block party anymore. It's about standing up to the HOA's tyranny and reclaiming our community." She paused, her gaze softening. "Don't you see? If we let Mrs. Wilkins get away with this, it'll only embolden her to keep pushing us around. We have to fight back, for the sake of our neighborhood and our way of life." Mike sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I understand, Jenna, but we have to be smart about this. We can't just charge in without a plan." Jenna nodded, her mind already worrying. "You're right. We need to outsmart Mrs. Wilkins and the HOA board, and I think I know just how to do it." Over the next few days, Jenna threw herself into research, poring over community bylaws and regulations. She made countless phone calls, reaching out to local officials and legal experts, determined to find a way to outmaneuver the HOA. Meanwhile, Mrs. Wilkins was basking in her victory, smugly informing the other board members of her triumph over Jenna's block party. "This is just the beginning," she declared. "We'll show these residents that they can't defy us and get away with it." But unbeknownst to her, Jenna was quietly assembling a formidable team of allies, each one with a unique skill or resource to offer. She reached out to the mayor, who was still troubled by the way the block party had been shut down, and enlisted his support. Together, they began to uncover a series of irregularities and questionable practices within the HOA's operations, from mishandling of funds to suspicious zoning decisions. Jenna knew that if they could expose these issues, it would undermine Mrs. Wilkins' credibility and power. As the team's investigation deepened, Jenna felt a growing sense of excitement. They were closing in on the truth, and she could practically taste the sweet victory that was to come. One evening, as Mrs. Wilkins was hosting another HOA board meeting, a knock came at the door. She opened it to find a group of reporters, their cameras flashing and their notebooks at the ready. "Mrs. Wilkins, we've received some concerning information about the HOA's finances and zoning decisions," one of the reporters said, her voice brimming with purpose. "We'd like to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind." Mrs. Wilkins' face paled as she realized that her carefully constructed facade was about to crumble. Jenna watched from afar, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. The battle had only just begun, but Jenna knew that the tide was turning in her favor. She was ready to take the fight to the HOA, and this time, she was determined to emerge victorious. The flashing cameras and probing questions from the reporters sent Mrs. Wilkins into a panic. She stammered and fumbled for words, her carefully crafted facade of authority crumbling before her eyes. Jenna watched the scene unfold with a mix of satisfaction and trepidation. She knew that this was just the beginning of a long and arduous battle, but the sight of the HOA president scrambling to defend herself was a small victory. As the reporters pressed on, uncovering discrepancies in the HOA's financial records and questionable zoning decisions, Mrs. Wilkins' composure began to unravel completely. The other board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, realizing that their leader's reign of power was now hanging by a thread. Jenna couldn't resist a smug smile as she observed the unfolding chaos. "Told you this wasn't over, Mrs. Wilkins," she murmured under her breath. "Now it's time to pay the piper." The following day, the local newspaper ran a scathing expose on the HOA's shady dealings, complete with damning evidence and statements from disgruntled residents. The story quickly went viral, sparking outrage and calls for a thorough investigation. Mrs. Wilkins, now the target of public scrutiny, found herself on the defensive. Attempts to dismiss the allegations as fake news or sour grapes from troublemakers like Jenna only served to further erode her credibility. Seeing an opportunity to capitalize on the situation, Jenna organized a town hall meeting, inviting the entire neighborhood to voice their concerns and grievances. The turnout was overwhelming, with residents flooding the community center, their anger and frustration palpable. One by one, the residents stepped up to the microphone, sharing their stories of HOA overreach, petty fines, and blatant disregard for their needs. Jenna listened intently, taking notes and nodding in solidarity. When it was her turn to speak, Jenna's voice rang out, clear and unwavering. "We're not just here to air our grievances," she declared. "We're here to demand change. We're here to take back our community from those who have abused their power for far too long." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, and Jenna knew she had struck a chord. She glanced over at Mrs. Wilkins, who sat in the front row, her face a mask of barely concealed rage. "The HOA board has shown us time and time again that they're more interested in maintaining their own authority than in serving the needs of the people," Jenna continued. "Well, I say it's time we put an end to that. It's time we take our community back." The crowd roared in agreement, and Jenna felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. This was her moment, the moment she had been waiting for. The battle lines had been drawn, and she was ready to lead the charge. As the meeting drew to a close, Jenna approached the microphone one last time. "We're not going to let Mrs. Wilkins and the HOA board continue to run roughshod over us," she declared. "We're going to fight, and we're going to win. This is our community, and we're taking it back." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Jenna knew that the tide had turned. The war against the HOA was about to enter a new, more intense phase, and she was more than ready to take the fight to her adversaries. The town hall meeting had ignited a fire within the community, and Jenna could feel the momentum building. The revelations about the HOA's shady practices had eroded Mrs. Wilkins' authority, and the residents were more determined than ever to take back control of their neighborhood. In the days that followed, Jenna worked tirelessly, organizing a series of protests and rallies outside the HOA's offices. The crowds grew larger with each passing day, as more and more residents joined the cause. Mrs. Wilkins, cornered and increasingly desperate, tried to dismiss the protests as the work of a vocal minority. But Jenna knew better. This was no longer about a single block party or a petty dispute over a grill. This was a full-fledged rebellion against the HOA's tyrannical rule. As the pressure mounted, the mayor stepped in, using his political influence to push for a formal investigation into the HOA's affairs. Jenna watched with a sense of triumph as the authorities began to scrutinize the organization's records and decision-making processes. "We've got them on the ropes now," Jenna told Mike, a steely determination in her eyes. "It's only a matter of time before the truth comes to light." Meanwhile, Mrs. Wilkins was growing increasingly unhinged, lashing out at anyone who dared to challenge her. She made frantic calls to the other board members, begging them to stand firm, but the cracks in their unity were becoming increasingly evident. One by one, the board members began to distance themselves from the embattled HOA president, realizing that their association with her had become a liability. The once formidable organization was crumbling from within, and Jenna could almost taste the sweet victory on the horizon. As the investigation reached its climax, a series of damning revelations came to light. The HOA had been systematically funneling funds into its own coffers, using dubious accounting practices to mask the misappropriation of residents' money. The zoning decisions that had sparked so much outrage were revealed to be the result of backroom deals and bribery. The public outcry was deafening, and the pressure on Mrs. Wilkins and the HOA board became overwhelming. Faced with the prospect of criminal charges and the imminent collapse of their power, they had no choice but to resign en masse. Jenna stood among the cheering crowd, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. "This is just the beginning," she declared. "Now it's time to rebuild our community, to make it stronger and more responsive to the needs of the people." The residents erupted in thunderous applause, and Jenna knew that she had won. The battle against the HOA's tyranny had been hard fought, but in the end, the power of the people had prevailed. As the dust settled, Jenna turned to Mike, her eyes shining with pride. "Can you believe it? We did it, honey. We took back our community." Mike pulled her into a warm embrace, his own eyes glistening with emotion. "I never doubted you for a second, Jenna. You were unstoppable." Jenna laughed, a weight lifted from her shoulders. "Well, now that the hard part is over, I think it's time we start planning the biggest block party this town has ever seen." With the corrupt HOA board ousted and the investigation into their misdeeds concluded, the residents of the community finally felt a sense of relief and optimism. Jenna, the driving force behind the rebellion, was now seen as a hero among her neighbors. As the dust settled, Jenna wasted no time in putting her plans for a grand block party into action. This time, she was determined to make it a true celebration of the community's hard-won victory. "After everything we've been through, we deserve to let loose and have some fun," Jenna said, rallying her neighbors. "This is our chance to come together and show the world that we're stronger than ever." The residents eagerly pitched in, volunteering their time and resources to make the event a resounding success. Word of the party quickly spread, and soon, people from neighboring communities were clamoring to attend. On the day of the celebration, the streets were alive with music, laughter, and the tantalizing aroma of grilled food. Jenna beamed with pride as she watched her neighbors mingle and bond, the tensions of the past few months all but forgotten. As the sun began to set, Jenna grabbed the microphone and addressed the crowd. "My friends, we've been through a lot together these past few months. But we've come out of it stronger, more united, and ready to write a new chapter in the history of our community." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Jenna continued, "This block party is not just a celebration of our triumph, but a symbol of the bright future that lies ahead. We've shown that when we stand together, we can overcome any challenge, no matter how daunting it may seem." Jenna paused, her gaze sweeping across the sea of faces before her. "And you know what? I think it's high time we break out those BBQ grills and really get this party started." The crowd roared in approval, and within minutes, the air was filled with the sizzle of burgers and the laughter of children playing in the streets. Jenna watched it all with a sense of profound joy, knowing that this moment was the culmination of her hard-fought battle. As the night wore on, the mayor himself made an appearance, much to the delight of the residents. He shook hands, posed for photos, and delivered a rousing speech praising the community's resilience and determination. "You all have shown that when a group of passionate, civic-minded individuals come together, they can achieve extraordinary things," the mayor said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "This community is an inspiration to us all, and I'm honored to be a part of your celebration tonight." Jenna stood by the mayor's side, beaming with pride. She knew that their victory was not just a personal triumph, but a testament to the power of grassroots activism and the unwavering spirit of a community united. As the party wound down and the last of the guests bid their farewells, Jenna and Mike embraced, their eyes gleaming with a mixture of joy and relief. "We did it, Jenna," Mike whispered. "We really did it." Jenna nodded, a contented smile spreading across her face. "Yes, we did. And this is just the beginning. Our community is stronger than ever, and the future is ours to shape." With that, the couple turned and walked hand in hand into the night, their hearts filled with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep, abiding pride in the place they called home. In the weeks that followed the triumphant block party, the community was abuzz with a renewed sense of energy and optimism. The ousting of the corrupt HOA board had ushered in a new era of grassroots involvement and civic engagement. Jenna, now hailed as a local hero, found herself at the center of a movement to reshape the neighborhood and the image of its residents. She wasted no time in convening a series of town hall meetings, inviting everyone to share their vision for the future. "We've taken back our community, but now the real work begins," Jenna declared. "It's time we decide what kind of place we want to live in. One that serves the needs of the people, not the whims of a few power-hungry individuals." The residents responded with enthusiasm, offering up a wide range of ideas and proposals. Some wanted to focus on improving local schools and community services, while others advocated for more green spaces and community gardens. There were even whispers of a push to incorporate the neighborhood into its own independent municipality, freeing it from the grip of the county-level bureaucracy. Jenna listened intently, taking notes and synthesizing the feedback. She knew that the path forward would not be easy, but she was determined to ensure that the community's newfound energy and unity would not be squandered. "We've come too far to settle for anything less than the best," she told the assembled crowd. "Let's take this opportunity to reimagine what our neighborhood can be. A model of civic engagement, sustainability, and community-driven progress." The residents erupted in applause, their faces alight with a sense of purpose and possibility. Jenna felt a surge of pride, knowing that she had played a pivotal role in sparking this transformation. In the months that followed, the community embarked on a series of ambitious projects, tackling everything from infrastructure improvements to the creation of a local farmers market. Jenna found herself at the forefront of these efforts, serving as a tireless organizer and advocate. As the community's reputation began to spread, the mayor took notice, offering his full support and resources. He even arranged for a delegation from the neighborhood to visit other successful community-driven initiatives across the state, allowing them to draw inspiration and best practices. Jenna marveled at the progress, watching as her once sleepy suburb blossomed into a vibrant, engaged, and self-sufficient community. The days of HOA tyranny and arbitrary rules were firmly in the past, replaced by a collaborative, citizen-led vision for the future. And as for the annual neighborhood block party, it had become an eagerly anticipated tradition, a celebration of the community's resilience, unity, and unending potential. Jenna stood at the center of it all, surrounded by her neighbors and friends, a proud smile on her face. This was her legacy, the triumph of a determined individual who had refused to back down in the face of adversity. "We did it, Mike," she whispered, squeezing her husband's hand. "We really did it." Mike nodded, his eyes shining with pride. Yes, we did. And I couldn't be more proud of you, Jenna. You're a true hero in our community. Jenna laughed, the sound mingling with the laughter and music that filled the air. I'm just getting started, my love. This is only the beginning of what we can achieve when we stand together. As the sun set and the crowd erupted in cheers, Jenna knew that her journey had come full circle. The battle against the HOA had been hard fought, but in the end, the power of the people had prevailed. And now, with a renewed sense of purpose and community, the future of this neighborhood was brighter than ever before.